Simplify your lives. Worldly people say, how lucky are the wealthy that live in big and luxurious mansions and have all the comforts and conveniences. Blessed, rather, are those who have succeeded in simplifying their lives and freeing themselves from the news of worldly progress, from the many comforts that cause much discomfort, and have rid themselves of the dreadful anxiety of today's times. If we refuse to simplify our lives, we will suffer. If we live simply, all our anxiety will go away. At Sinai, a German visitor told a very intelligent Bedouin boy, "You're intelligent, you can become literate." And then the boy asked, "Well, then you will become a car mechanic." And then the boy asked, "Then you will open a car shop, and then you will hire others to work for you. You will have your own stuff." In other words, the boy said, "I will start with one headache and then add another and another. Isn't it better now, with my mind free of worries?" Most headaches are the result of the thoughts we have about doing this and doing that. But if our minds were engaged with spiritual matters, we would feel divine consolation and would not suffer from headaches. When I meet with lay people, I stress simplicity. Many of the things they do are unnecessary and only bring anxiety. I speak to them about frugality, austerity, and asceticism. I constantly remind them, if you want to get rid of anxiety, simplify your lives. Anxiety and being too busy are the cause of most divorces. People have too many things to do, too many obligations, and they get dizzy just thinking about it. The mother and the father both work and neglect their children. They are tired, irritable, small reasons, big quarrels, automatic divorce. That's how it all ends up. If they had simplified their lives, they would have had both relief and joy. Anxiety is catastrophic. Once I was at a very luxurious house. We were talking and they said, "We live in paradise, while other people are in such great need." "You live in hell," I replied. God said to the rich man, "Fool, this night your soul shall be required of you." If Christ were to ask me, "Where should I put you, in a house like this or in a prison?" I would reply, "In a dark prison." A prison would do me good. It would remind me of Christ, of the holy martyrs, and the ascetics who lived in the holes of the earth. It would remind me of the monastic life. The prison would look like my monastic cell and I would be happy. But what can your house remind me of? How can it help me? This is why I find prison cells much more restful than the most comfortable living room. I even find them more restful than a beautiful monastic cell. I would rather spend 1,000 nights in a prison cell than one day in a luxurious house. Once, I was staying with a friend in Athens. He asked me to receive a family man who could see me only very early in the morning. At the dawn, because that was the only time he had available, he arrived in a cheerful mood, praising God. He was full of humility and simplicity and asked me to pray for his family. He was about 38 years old and had 7 children. Together with his wife, parents and children, they were 11 souls. They all shared the same room. He spoke with great simplicity. The room fits us all if we stand up, but gets a bit tight when we lie down. Thank God, now we are constructing a shed to use as a kitchen, and we are doing fine, Father, he said. At least we have a roof over our heads. Other people have to live in the open air. The man earned a living ironing. He lived in Athens and had to leave every day before dawn to get to Paisios on time for work in a dry cleaning shop. He was suffering from varicose veins because he was on his feet for long hours. His legs bothered him a lot, but he had such love for his family that he forgot his pain and discomfort. In fact, he blamed himself constantly for not having, as he said, any love in his heart, and not doing good deeds as a Christian should. He praised his wife for being charitable, besides taking care of her children and her parents-in-law. She would wash the clothes of elderly men in the neighborhood, tidy up their homes, and even cook a little something like soup for them. One could see divine grace painted on the face of this good family man. He had Christ inside him and was full of joy. His one-room house was a paradise of happiness. Compare this man with people whose hearts are not filled with Christ, but with anxiety. Take two of them and try to fit them in a house with 11 rooms. It will not be big enough for them. And yet, these 11 people with Christ all fit in one room. Even spiritual people may not be able to live together in the same place. No matter how much space they have, they cannot fit, because Christ does not fit in them. If the woman of Farasa could see the many luxuries that people have today, including that of some monasteries, they would say, "We people have been abandoned by God. He will send down fire and burn us." I remember how quickly, briskly, they did their daily chores. They had to take the goats out first thing in the morning, and then do the housework. After that, they would go to the chapels or gather in caves, and those who could read would read the lives of their day's saints from the Synaxary, lives of saints. Next, they would do their prostrations and say the Jesus prayer, and they worked, they got tired. In those days, a woman had to know how to make and mend clothes. They made the clothes by hand and mended them by hand. There were a few sewing machines in cities, but no sewing machines in the villages. In the entire town of Farasa, there was at best one manual sewing machine. They even sewed the men's clothes. They made them really comfortable. They knit socks by hand. They put their whole self into their daily chores. They had a caring taste, but because they did things in a simple way, they always had time to do all these chores. The people of Farasa did not pay attention to details. They lived and enjoyed the pleasures of monastic life. If, for example, a blanket hung unevenly over one side of the bed, and you said to them, "Straighten out the blanket," they would reply, "Why does this prevent you from praying?" This type of monastic joy is unknown today. Most people believe that it is not good to be deprived of anything, to face hardships. But if they thought in monastic terms and lived with more simplicity, they would find the peace they are seeking. Instead, they suffer, filled with anxiety and despair. They say, "So-and-so was very successful because he built 2 apartment buildings, or because he learned 5 languages, and I did not even own 1 apartment or speak 1 foreign language. Oh, I am good for nothing." A person with a car thinks, "That man has a better car than I do. I should buy one like that too." And he gets the better car, he feels no joy because a third person's car is even better. And when he goes and gets the best car he can buy, he finds out that others have their own private aeroplane, and he is unhappy again. There is no end to this. Compare him with someone who never owned a car but feels such joy when he praises God. "Thank God," he says, "I may not have a car, but my legs are strong and I can walk." There are so many people in the world that do not have a full use of their legs and cannot take care of their own needs or go for walks. Thank God I have my legs. And the person with a bad limp finds joy in this thought. There are some people who are missing both legs. Ingratitude and greed are evils. A person that is possessed by material things is always possessed by worries and anxiety. He trembles at the thought that he may lose both his belongings and his soul. A wealthy man came to see me from Athens and told me, "Father, I have lost touch with my children. I have lost them." "How many children do you have?" I asked him. "Two," he said. "I raised them in luxury. They had everything they wanted. I even bought each of them a car." In the course of the conversation, I found out that he and his wife also had their own cars. "My dear man," I said, "instead of solving your problems, you made them worse. Now you need a large garage for all the cars and a mechanic to service them, and you will have to pay him fourfold. Moreover, all four of you are in danger of killing yourselves at any time. But if you have simplified your life, your family would be united, and you would have understanding for each other, and none of the problems you are describing. It's not your children's fault, it is your fault for not trying to raise them differently, simply. A family does not need 4 cars, a garage, a mechanic, and so on. Let one of you reach his destination a bit later. All these conveniences beget difficulties." Another man came to see me at the Calvary. Altogether there were 5 in his family. "Father," he said, "we have a car and are thinking of buying another 2. It would help us a lot." "Did you think," I replied, "of how difficult this is going to make your lives? 1 car is easy to park. Where are you going to park 3 of them? You will need a garage and a storage tank of fuel. And moreover, you will put your lives in danger. It is better to have only 1 car and limit your outings. This will give you more time to spend with your children, and you will have peace of mind. Simplifying one's life is the most important thing." "I never thought of that," he replied. Geronda. A man told us that twice he could not stop his car's alarm. The first time it was due to a fly. The second time he tried to get into the car the wrong way. People's lives are sheer misery because they do not keep things simple. Most of the conveniences we have cause difficulties. Those who live in the world often drown in abundance. They have filled their lives with gadgets and conveniences and have only succeeded in making their lives difficult. As long as we do not simplify things, even one convenience will give birth to a host of difficulties. When we were little, we used to cut off the spool at the end, put a wedge in it, and make a nice toy. It was fun. Small children have more fun playing with a toy car than their fathers have playing with their new Mercedes. If one asks a little girl, "What do you want, a doll or an apartment building?" you will see that she will say a doll. In the end, small children will also get to know the vanity of this world. Geronda. What is the best way to come to understand the joy of austerity and frugality? You need to grasp the deeper meaning of life. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. This is the beginning of simplicity and the right way to deal with things in one's life.